I think I read somewhere where you had your own private security firm or
Yes.
something. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct. And that was during my time at Coral Springs. One of the things I did when I was at Coral Springs, I started paying attention to all the active shooter events that were occurring all across the country and all across the world in our mosques, inside of our schools. And I told my administrator, I said, hey, I told my chief, we need to start advancing the training here. We need to prepare because someday we're going to have a catastrophic event,
Yes.
a mass shooting here in Broward County, and it's best for us to be prepared. And fortunately, my chief of police then said, you know what? He said, Sarge, at the time I was still a sergeant, you're correct. Go ahead and do what you need to do. And I went up to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, working with the Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
Became a nationally certified active shooter threat instructor, got my tactical medical certification, and I came back and started putting all these training programs into Coral Springs. Well, while I was doing that, I started getting calls from private sector businesses, and companies were curious, can you come in and help us design our response protocols? I have 400 employees. I'm worried about my employees.
Wow.
And that's when it hit. I said, maybe I can do this also outside of the agency. I wrote my own business plan, started my own company, and began to travel across the entire county training individuals. And fortunately, I had success there and decided that I was going to do that full time, and retired early from the police department. And unfortunately, while having success in my company, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting took place in our high school here.
Right.
And I recall looking on TV
And
once
that was
again.
Coral Springs, right?
That was Coral Springs
Yes.
Police that responded first on scene.
Yes.
And performed well. And I remember looking on the screen and seeing the very officers I trained, the very people that I had put through these programs, running into the schools and doing what we trained them to do. And I felt a sense of pride, but I was also disappointed that I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe all of 2 days later, the chief of police calls me. He says, hey, Greg, you know, everything that you warned us about years ago came to fruition. And you were right then. It's time for you to come back and start talking to the community. I think they're going to listen. And so I left my wife. I was in South Carolina at the time. I left my wife of 16 years in South Carolina.
Interesting.
For an entire month by herself to come back here and help Broward County. I didn't want anything, wasn't expecting anything.
You just got a love for security,
Yes,
law enforcement,
and
and caring for the
service.
the service of people.
Being able to serve people.
Yes, yes.
And I came back here, interesting enough, I came back here and I was 100% speaking to legislators and state officials about here's what we need to change in terms of policy, here's where the money should probably be spent. And lo and behold, you never know who's watching, you never know who's paying attention to the works that you're doing. I get a call from the governor's office.
Yeah.
Saying he
'Cause
wants.
I was just about to ask you that.
Yeah.
So what was this big connection about with the governor and you directly? I mean, that is very
was
interesting.
it was just a matter of doing the right thing, and not being concerned about capitalizing on materialistic things or trying to get something for yourself. I had turned down money and contracts that we were working on in South Carolina, but it was important to come here. This is my community. You know, this is Broward County.
I'm sure in your private business, you would have been making more money than the official law enforcement.
There's an old saying: you don't sign up in this profession to be rich. It's about service. And you know, I got the interview. I got the call on a Monday from the governor's team saying, "Be in Tallahassee on Tuesday. Bring a suit and a tuxedo. You're going to be interviewed after the inauguration." And I was one of 3 candidates. I was the only African American candidate. I was the youngest at the time of my appointment, and I believe this is still true today. I'm the youngest sheriff in the state of Florida.
Wow.
At 41 years of age. I came in at 40. And I was the second person to be interviewed that day. And the 30-minute interview went to 45 minutes, and an hour later, the governor was confident that I was the one that could come down here, fix the deficiencies in terms of active shooter preparedness. And we'll talk about some of the advancements we've done. And on January 11th, I was sworn in as the first black sheriff in the history of this county. We've never had a minority lead this organization.